everyone. I'm Darian Gold, and welcome to All Things Pilates Season 6. As we dig deeper into the life of a contrologist, this season's guest list shares what the Pilates methodology can offer to anyone who desires health and wellness. On this show, we'll explore, seek, and investigate what's possible when we incorporate contrology into our lives. One of the most well-received episodes from last season was with John Vignola. And if you haven't heard his first interview, briefly, he spoke about his journey from a severe back injury in the 1990s to taking a chance with the Pilates Method. He saw many specialists who helped a little or not at all. Then, with a few little nudges from me, his sister-in-law, he discovered the power of the method and how it helped him become pain-free. Today, he's back to talk about his full recovery. Hello, JV. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, Darian. Thanks for having me back. This is a real honor.
Well, straight up, how do you know for sure you are fully recovered?
Darian, that is a great question because it is very difficult to answer. And
you didn't have an aha moment.
No, there is no such thing as an aha moment with a long-term injury. It's very difficult to determine when you have a long-term injury or illness when you are fully recovered. And Darian, I know you can relate to this because you had long COVID, and so the recovery is
long,
slow, and unsure, and I'm sure you still have a lot of questions, so you can relate to this. The reason is because the recovery is long, the injury has been around for a long time, and so it's hard to grasp. Your mind is hard to grasp how long it's going to take to recover. And in my case, it took a long time to just recognize it because in my case, it was there. And it took me about 3 or 4 months to really realize that I had been recovered. So I like to use an example. The reason it's so difficult to determine whether you are fully recovered is think of your recovery and your injury like a stock market chart. A stock market chart is not just a straight line up or down. It has a sawtooth pattern to it. In other words, in a stock market, bull market, there is an upward trend, but that is only determined by the highs are a little higher than the last time and the lows are a little higher than last time. That's difficult to recognize. And on the same thing on the downside, you can't find the bottom to it either because your lows are a little lower and your highs are a little lower. So it is very difficult to recognize. And I know all of you stock market people out there can identify with this. This is why the stock market is so tough to figure out. If you don't look at it in trend-wise, you don't know what a horrible market day is, if that's the beginning of the end or not. So that's why I like to use this as an example. So the answer is, it took me about 6 months from the time I began your classes to what I consider full recovery. And it was a very slow awakening. And I think this is because when you have an injury, your mind builds what I call a mental spreadsheet on your injury. You've been living with it for so long that your mind kind of knows by intuition if you're getting a little better or a little worse, but it's not all right in front of you at the same time. But it can tell you, uh-oh, this is bad, or oh, this is good, because your mind has memorized, in my case, 20 years worth of the injuries, all the scenarios. This hurt your back, and it's going to take you 2 weeks to recover from that. This is all built into your brain. So my recovery was a slow awareness that, hey, guess what? I would still hurt my back, but guess what? It was like a stock market chart. That low, it didn't take me as long to recover this time. And so that's how I finally determined that, hey, I think I'm better from taking Darian's Pilates mat class. This is the best I've been in 20 years.
I seem to remember that after a class, maybe that day or following day, if I were to talk to you or you sent me a text or something, I would ask you, how is your back today after that class? I seem to remember you're saying that it's still tight in the morning, but it doesn't take so long to let everything open up. I am finding that instead of it taking 2 hours, now it's maybe just under an hour. That's how you were basing how the mat work was responding into your body and how it showed up when you would just get up in the morning. Remember, you said you would get up and your back was super stiff, and you walk down the stairs, your back is super stiff. But then that started to diminish as you became more and more consistent with the mat work. Is that correct?
That's very accurate. And yes. And so going back to the stock market chart analogy, it took quite a bit of time to realize that I was on an uptrend. Simple as that. And I had not had an uptrend in 20 years.
So that motivated you to stay with the Pilates mat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The motivation became fierce and ferocious because I had finally grabbed onto something that was working. Once I grabbed onto that, then I was on a one-way, huge motivational trend to get my back better through Pilates, using the first tool that had ever worked for me, Pilates mat.
Isn't that amazing?
Amazing. And the amazement about it is I had no indication it would. I was coming from a place of I'll try anything. So Pilates mat was on an equal plane with everything that I had tried. I had no expectations. I did not know if it was going to work or if it was not going to work. So it was a very pleasant surprise.
You're saying that 6 months, using the stock market analogy, the trend you could see on the chart, it kept moving up and up and up, and maybe a little dip, but then you kept going up and up. So after about 6 months of that, this is now, I don't know, in 2022 maybe?
Yes.
Because I'm trying to, around 2022, because you started, I'm recovering at your house sometime in 2021. And I remember we would all go for a walk. Santa Cruz County is gorgeous, so it was always brisk and sunny, and we walk near the water. And we could only walk as far as I could handle. I remember that. One time, I think we might have walked 10 or 15 minutes. I said, I have to go back. It was really scary because I didn't know if my lungs would be working for me to get back to your house and feel safe. But once we would come back to your house, we always went out onto the deck in the sun and started stretching out. And I think that's in the beginning, you had asked me or you had watched me do some of the mat work. And I just gave you a couple of instructions and you started to practice what I was giving you. But there was no commitment there because you didn't know what the hell it was all about. So that was sometime in mid 2021.
Correct. Yes.
And then in 2022, so now you've had some mat work, you can tell that something is happening, even though you can't necessarily describe specifically where in your body. You just know you're measuring based on how your back is when you wake up in the morning.
Yes.
At some point, did you say to yourself, I believe I am fully recovered? Did you say those words to yourself? And if so, how did that make you feel? What was going on in your head?
Yes, it was very epiphany-like, to use that word as an example. I literally woke up exactly like you describe it. It was like an afterthought. I woke up it dawned on me. And, now that I'm thinking about it, it makes perfect sense because you have some of your best thoughts in the morning, right when you wake up. Your head is clear and you're not bogged down by all of the daily things that are yet to come. So you've got a free open space in your mind. That's when you get your best thoughts. And that allowed that epiphany to really shine. Hey, my back is feeling pretty good. I've noticed that I've been getting better. Yes, it happened in the morning after I got up. Correct.
It was like an afterthought, so that maybe when you got up, maybe one day your attention wasn't on your back. Your attention was, I'm walking downstairs and having my green tea. What's that called? Matcha? Matcha. I'm having
that bitter, god-awful thing that you have to put a ton of sugar in to make it taste good.
But your mind is on that. So I can imagine that I think that's for all of us when we have something that's plaguing us and at some point it dissipates and we go about our day. And then at some point we go, wait a second, my mind hasn't been focused on this one part of my body. That must mean that things are getting better. Things are looking up.
Yes, that's exactly how it happened. And there's a little bit of irony in that I track everything so hard in my life. I'm a constant note keeper and record keeper. I'm crazy about stats. Love it. I love to do it. I write out my day plan every day before we start. And something like this, in which I engaged in the Pilates mat specifically to see if it would help my back. And you think I would have kept track of it. And the irony is I kind of lost that thought, which was good. Took my mind off, hey, am I making progress with my back or not? That became kind of secondary because I was enjoying learning the new Pilates mat and how different it was from everything I've ever done, that I kind of took my mind off of yes, I'm doing this to see if this will help my back.
Yes. And that leads me to sort of a follow-up question, even though I didn't ask you a question right there. How did your low back influence your decision-making on your daily activities? So like you're saying now, which is ironic because you didn't put down, oh, here is where my low back hurts and I'm not going to do gardening or yard work today. But I'm sure your low back influenced how you decided what activity you were going to do that day.
It did influence, but again, it had been so long, it was subconscious. I never said to myself, I'm not going to do that.
It's like the traffic in LA, really, because traffic just becomes part of it. So if you have to be somewhere, you already know you build in 2 extra hours. You don't even think about it.
Excellent analogy. Excellent. That's exactly what it's like. Your mind, without you having the conscious thought, dictates what you're going to do and how you're going to do it according to how your back feels. It's like an automatic transmission in your body. There would be some days, to use as an example, there'd be some days that my back was really sore and there was no way I was going to go out there and lift a wheelbarrow full of dirt or go raking or shoveling, which would put enormous amount of twisting and stress on the back. I somehow came up with something different to do that day. Never really thought about it. So yeah, that was the mind telling the body, nothing stressful on the back today, John.
So the mind obviously plays a big role in how the body heals.
Huge. I think the main component of the mind that helps the body heal is conscious, though. And I want to talk about that. And that's the positive attitude. If you have a positive attitude in your mind and you cement it there, no matter how good or bad things are, and it stays fixed that way, that kind of provides the so-called leadership for your body to stay on a certain path always. Again, like I said, I write notes for my chores every day. This is a chore that is written in my mindset every day. You are going to try and get better. You are going to try and get better. And it can help lead the body on that path. Even if you're in using that analogy, in a 20-year bear market with your back, your mind always wants to point that graph upside.
So you never felt like giving up?
Never, ever felt like giving up. It was always in the back of my mind that I could get better. Some of that was physical too. Remember from my last interview, here's the news that I got from the doctors that always let me know that there was a path to get better. They could find no physical damage in my back. I had the back of a normal, whatever age I was at that. I was in my 40s at the time. That led me to believe there was nothing to put a death sentence on my back. So I'm open to finding something that will make me better again.
But those doctors, they weren't PTs. They were medical doctors. And did they correct?
Well, I saw both physical therapy. I saw both, but I started with doctors.
Okay. And the medical doctors, they didn't probably know about the Pilates method, even though Joe had come here in the 20s. They're not going to say in the 1990s, oh, we've heard about this method that is really, really back corrective. And we are suggesting and recommending that our patients try. So they didn't do that. They could have if they had more knowledge and insight about how the body functions. But even PTs, they helped maybe a little, as I said in the intro.
They helped a little. In my case, the least helpful people were the doctors. And that's because it makes perfect sense, because their job was mostly corrective surgery. They have a very narrow window to look at with my type of injury. The physical therapist had a wider window. Had I had damage in my back, they would have had, it would have been 1, 2, 3. You need some corrective surgery or something for that. That would have given them, that, so to speak, a job to do. But they didn't have any job to do with my back. And so they were baffled. But they did one right thing. They passed me on to the physical therapist. Thank God. Or I would have gone there anyway, but at least it came from a bad place. It was not like, yes, this is the next step for you to fill. It was like,
we can't do anything.
Figure out we can't do anything for you. So go try a physical therapist. That was kind of funny.
But you didn't feel discouraged.
Never. And that's part of who I am. A different person might have. And the reason is my physical being is so high priority, always was, and always will be. And that's why I was so aggressive with it. Other people, maybe it might have been different, but a lot of my ego and
self-esteem,
and, my self-esteem is all based on my physical.
I can appreciate that,
and I'm glad for that.
I know. Remember last time you just told us how fabulous your abs were.
Right. And we'll go into the abs. I know you have a question about the core. We'll get there. So
yes, I want to ask you, there are men practicing Joe's method. It's more accepted and embraced, I would say, at this point. Even non-athletic guys who need it for their job or whatever. But there are men out there who still perceive that the Pilates method is just for women. And based on your experience with the Pilates method thus far, what would you say to a guy if, let's say, you're at a gathering and you're talking about the Pilates method and he probably says, oh, isn't that just for girls? How would you set him straight, JV?
First of all, I would say to him, that is a preconceived notion that you have. I understand where you're coming from on that. You look at the Pilates. There's a lot of stretching, and there's a lot of parts of it that look like yoga. And by the way, I'm glad I just said yoga, because that was the preconceived image of yoga back in the 70s and 80s. That's just for women, because they would look at a class and see all the stretching and automatically compute that that's for women. And so a preconceived notion is just that. It's without doing any homework or thinking about what it can do for you or anything. It's just this image that you have in your mind. It can really hurt you. So if you write it off because you think it's just for women, you're hurting yourself.
Is it because they're intimidated by the stretching factor because their bodies are usually tighter? Do they perceive Joe's method as a requisite is that you have to have a lot of stretch in your body? Do you think that is part of the hesitancy?
Yes, I do, but that's a very limiting thing to think that way, because when you need to take on something like Pilates to improve yourself, if you have a preconceived idea about it without thinking about it, it's like you live in a city and the only thing you've ever known is driving in a car. And your work is 6 blocks away and it takes you an hour to get there. And it never dawns on you that they have public transportation. You can get there in 5 minutes, but you grew up with automobiles your whole life. You have no idea that at one time, public transportation, trolley cars and buses and was the main transportation. That's a good example of a preconceived notion. And for the guys, I would say, you need to get over that kind of attitude if you want to improve, because let me add one more thing. There's a lot of male ego in those statements. They can look at a yoga class or a Pilates class to see all the stretching, and they can look and say, oh, I'm not going to be very good in that. I'm not going to look very good in there, and write it off. If you let your ego get in the way, you're closing the doors on a lot of open opportunities.
And a healthy body.
Never go into any activity because or let me put it this way, don't go into an activity only because you think you would be good at it. That's a terrible attitude. That's a very narrow road to go down. You're never going to get better at anything if you're only going to pick things that you think you're good at. Very narrow.
Okay, men out there who haven't tried any of the mat work, let alone the apparatus. Speaking of the mat work, would you like to speak about the weekly men's mat class that you are enjoying?
Yes, I'm loving it. Let's go back in history a little bit. And I jumped right into the fire. And this is a good follow-up to what you were just talking about, the men with women. I started off with all women in the class, and it was very intimidating because Pilates mat plays to a lot of women's strengths that men don't have, AKA flexibility. And so if you do a direct comparison to in this between men and women are going to kick your butt, because in general, unless you're a male ballet dancer like Baryshnikov, you're not going to be as flexible as the women. And so if you have that kind of attitude, you're always going to be dejected. In other words, when I was the only guy in a class full of women, I got my butt kicked every week. But fortunately, I didn't keep track of points like that. I was looking at to reap the benefits of the class. So I wrote that off and kind of looked at the humor in it to try and get by. But I have to admit, it was very frustrating because not everybody, all the women in the class were much better than me every week, with a very slim chance of me ever getting as good as them. I just had to let it go. So to follow up on your question, Darian finally offered a men's class with all men in it. And I'll have to say, I was kind of relieved. Even though I was never going to quit the women's class, I was kind of relieved to be put on a level playing field with other gentlemen in the same class. As a matter of fact, I kind of went to the head of the class because I had been doing it longer than these other guys. So I'm enjoying it very much now. So, folks, Darian has a men's class, Pilates mat class. If you're having a little problem with women's flexibility issues, here's a class for just us guys.
Hey everyone, want to level up your teaser? When I'm not interviewing or editing, I'm helping students just like you get to the next level. If you'd like to understand the Contrology technique, come learn from me, whether online or in person. Just know I'm here and happy to help. Now, back to the interview. And what did you say probably the first or second time we all met? This is a mat class that I started a couple of months ago, Tuesdays at 9 a.m. California time. Most of the men are in Germany and Austria, and we're trying to build the men here in this country. But what did you say? Do you remember what you said to all the guys after class? And everyone's smiling. You can tell they're glistening. And I had you guys do a whole bunch of push-ups at the end of class. So everyone was very happy. But you said, do you remember?
Yes, I do. I wanted to help them prevent from being discouraged in some regard. I know it was the end of the class and their faces were lit up, but I wanted to make them feel comfortable and head them off at the pass, so to speak, for what I had dealt with, and to give them.
Because I do the class with them. I am doing the class with them. And of course, I have a lot of flexibility because I've been training for 5 decades. I don't know how that's possible, but it's a long ass time. And so you wanted to make sure that they weren't feeling how you were feeling with other women in their flexibility. You wanted them not to feel discouraged just because I think you used the word compare. Don't compare yourself to Darian.
That's exactly what I was doing. I didn't want them to go through what I went through, although I dealt with it very well. I wanted to give them perspective right off the bat. Don't be comparing yourself with Darian, especially in the flexibility department. And I gave an example. I said, we men look terrible with the one movement specifically that Darian does. She sits on the floor, spreads her legs out, and then bows over and puts her head, listen to this closely, she can get her head all the way to the floor. Now, compare that with the guys, or let's just talk about me. I've been with this class for, maybe going on 2 years now. My head can only go at, 90 degrees is straight up, nothing at all. I'm maybe at 75. Remember, Darian's at 100%. I'm at maybe 75 after 2 years and still pushing hard. And so I've made very little progress, might not ever make any progress. But what I wanted to point out to these gentlemen was that's not the point, to be as flexible as Darian. Just try your best for whatever level you can get to and always try and get a little bit better. The point being that you want to reap the benefits from these flexibility moves, not to try and replicate exactly the position that Darian has, because you're never going to get there. How's that for a positive, negative statement?
As well as the strength moves, because it takes flexibility to find the length in your body so you're in a correct body position for doing a strength move, i.e. a push-up. You can't sink in your low back, so that requires length out of the back of your body. So it's not a separate experience with flexibility. It's just that if your body has movement and has the ability to elongate, it makes accessing the strength that you have inside potentially light up.
Yes.
Is there anything that you want to follow up with? asking me a question about the class in general, or?
Yes, Darian. I am a 50-year gym rat, and I go to the gym 4 times a week. And I have noticed, this is recent, this is within the last 6 months or so, my gym has a battery of trainers in there. So if you sign up for our gym and you're a beginner or you want to make improvements, you can sign on with a trainer, male or female. Most of them are very young. You can tell they're just off college, or they're going for a degree in that physical therapy or something like that. What I have noticed, and this would have only happened because I've been taking your class, awareness. I've noticed that a lot of the moves that they're teaching
Similar.
their students are very Pilates-esque, mat Pilates-esque. So that got me to thinking, where that means that these trainers are being taught some Pilates moves and
Clearly.
they're passing it on to their students. Yes. So, Darian, this is what I wanted to ask you. Where are we with Pilates and the giving perspective from the beginning to now? Where are we with Pilates? And I like to use compare it with, like, say, yoga, which yoga was just, you never even heard the word in the 1960s. It started coming on in the 70s. It exploded in the 1980s, and it has grown ever since, and it is commonplace now. Where is Pilates in that scheme?
Okay, that's a good question. That's a broad question. The first thing that comes to mind is if you have a mat and you have space in your home or in the park, if you have a place to put your mat, you have the ability to practice contrology. And if people have listened to any of my episodes, there are so many approaches to Joe's work, whether it's very traditional, there's a very specific order, there's Joe's 34 exercises, and then there are iterations of those 34, and you might end up doing 100 exercises. So I think it's important to understand the root of Joe's methodology. And the more you practice, the more you can see hints of yoga and acrobatics. You can see it. And he was a gymnast, as you and I both were. So we can identify with that kind of physicality. I think Joe's method is still on the rise. I don't think it's really hit its peak yet, as yoga maybe did in the early 2000s. It's what people perceive the Pilates method as, what it is to them. And everyone has sort of a different interpretation. I think that there is probably, you might compare it more to Ashtanga yoga. It's a very strong practice. It needs discipline. It needs focus and awareness that you were talking about earlier. And if people can learn even a few of Joe's exercises and done correctly and practiced with the correct breathing, the body will open up in ways that one cannot anticipate. I wouldn't necessarily compare it to yoga. What you will get out of it is more than just becoming flexible. There is always a balance between stretch and strength. So Romana used to say that you could sum up Joe's work in 3 words, which is stretch, strength, and control. So can you find the stretch of the exercise, the strength of the exercise done with full body control? So you could do 7 exercises. I have a DVD called The First 7. You can glean so much from 7 exercises, but it takes a certain amount of focus and intellect to be able to understand the depth of these exercises. I'm not saying that it doesn't take intelligence to practice yoga. It's just a different animal, really. So to answer your question, I would say that Contrology is still on its way up, and it won't hit its peak until basically the world is practicing the mat work. The mat work is a perfect adjunct to any other kind of activity. Even if you spent 15 minutes a day doing rolling like a ball, single leg stretch, double leg stretch, you don't have to do so many exercises to get what your body needs. And as you know, every time you wake up, your body is a little different. So if we can use a specific set of exercises, those exercises will give you what your body needs for that day. Did that answer your question?
It sure did. It sure did. And for me, the concept that worked for me from Pilates, and maybe some other kind of exercise that I don't even know the name of, may implement these two tools. The secret that worked for me was the combination of flexibility and strengthening at the same time.
Correct.
That was the missing ingredient for my lower back. The stretching was not doing the job. The strengthening was missing. And how it was missing was because of my concept of what the core was. It was very narrow. I thought I had a strong, I didn't call it core. I called it abs. I had a six-pack mentality. And what's a six-pack? That's a bodybuilding term of all of the muscles in the front of your stomach showing. I have always had a six-pack, and I considered that.
And I'm proud of it.
And proud of it, right? Right. Typical bodybuilder. What do you do when you go into the gym? Lift up your T-shirt right in the mirror and look at that six-pack. Yep, everything's going good. And that mentality is what kept me from getting better with my back, because it's more than the front of your stomach. And that's what was so humbling about the Pilates, because it focuses on the whole core. And I found out the hard way that my six-pack was not so strong. My six-pack was only crunches, which I could do a million of, but that's not enough to strengthen your back or your core. So that learning experience opened up the door to heal up my back.
Full body.
Right, to go from six-pack mentality to core mentality, whole body. Right. And it was black and white, immediately found, because I literally could not do some of those moves that you did that were core. I couldn't do them. And that was astounding to me, because I thought my abs were strong. I literally couldn't do some of these moves. But it also provided starting from ground zero, it gave me the typical attitude that I have is, okay, you can do those, I can do those too, except I was starting from ground zero. So it was a great, looking back on it, that was a transformative experience for me.
And maybe, speaking of other men's experiences and why they may not feel ready emotionally to try the mat work, is perhaps they don't live in a state of humility. So it's uncomfortable to feel humbled.
You need to go into a state of humility to get out of a long-term injury, or to start something new that you have no experience with. It's a necessary tool. Humility is a necessary tool to open. Yes, it really is.
I'm glad you said that.
If you have a hard time with that, you're gonna be narrow, dude.
So JV, in closing, I know that many listeners who listened to your first interview and now listening to your second, and I know they're thrilled that once again, Joe's method has helped somebody truly heal their body. Is there anything that you would like to add to how you are in the world now, how the mat work has helped you perceive your body and what's possible out in the world, and what that experience can do to help others who haven't yet had that experience. Anything that you would like to add?
Yes, and I give me a while to answer your question because it's
okay, everybody, you got to sit
like
back, get yourself a glass of wine.
I would like to start very broad, and then I'll narrow in on what you are asking. And I want to do that on purpose because that will help give perspective. And I need to go back to this story that the people that heard my first interview might remember, but for those people that didn't listen the first time, it's necessary for me to go back to that story to add on to it, to say what I want to say here. When I was in high school or a freshman in college, late 60s, early 70s, I was a very young laddie, full of confidence, very young, very strong, physically strong. I was at a party and I was in a swimming pool with my friends at my friend's house. His father's friends were there also. And it got to be near the end of the night. And I ended up in a swimming pool with just this one elderly gentleman who was very quiet. And he was in his late 70s, early 80s, is my guess. And he didn't pull me over. We were both in the pool. He said, he had been very quiet, and he said to me, "Young man, I want to give you the best piece of advice you're ever going to get in your life." He said, "I am very wealthy. I have all the money I could ever want." He said, "I would trade all of it in a heartbeat to feel good again," because he was not in very good physical condition. You could tell he was ill. He was slumped over. His physical condition was bad. He said, "I ruined my health building my business." And he said, "Don't make that mistake. Take care of yourself." And that stuck with me my whole life. I never forgot that. And I occasionally revisit that moment. And for this interview, I want to add on to it because I've had some further thoughts about that night. And the thoughts are this: he did not have all of the new technology, the new medical, the new physical, all of the new things that we've learned in plus 50 years. He didn't have any of that. And so he was working from a place that the best he knew. He only had regrets at the end when he supposedly thought he didn't take care of himself. But those people from that generation, I'll put his generation, he was early 20th century. He was about my grandfather's age. There was nothing about physical fitness. That all of the physical fitness and therapy and advances all came in the late 60s, 70s, and 80s. He did not have the knowledge to be able to work with. And he was doing what he thought was right. What was the most important thing back then? To make it in this world, make money. And they almost had an attitude just the opposite of, because they didn't have the knowledge of physical fitness, to relax and to be rested was their idea of physical fitness. They didn't have a clue. He didn't have any of the tools. I'm sure that he had the knowledge that we have now, he would have taken better care of himself, because it goes off like a bullhorn every day to us. It's in the news all the time. Advancements in physical therapy, advancements in training. And our worst problem now is deciding which part of it you want to grab onto it. All of it is good. You can improve your physical fitness at any aerobic level you want, with evidence behind it that aerobics improves your heart rate. He had none of that back in his day. So what's the moral of the story? Aren't we lucky to be living in this time of age where we have all of this knowledge at our disposal, and there is no excuse for you not to take care of yourself and have your physical well-being and fitness as a high priority up there along with everything else. That old man, that old gentleman didn't have that opportunity. And so that's what I wanted to say. And so we have all the choice in the world right now. I mean, your worst problem right now is which one you're going to choose. What a great problem to have. And the results are physically evident today. You look at a gentleman like him that was in his late 70s or early 80s or later in those days, 98% of them were hunched over. Why? Because there was no concept of strength training. You just gave in to your natural body cycle, which is you start to lose muscle mass when you get older. What happens when you lose muscle mass? You lose your spine control. You hunch over. You didn't have any of that at the time. Now you see quite a bigger percentage of older people that have very good posture. Why? They're keeping their muscle strength up. They're keeping their back supported with muscle strength because they know now. And so that's what I wanted to say. Pick Pilates, pick something. Stay in shape. It's right up there. It's, for some people, it's the most important thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't pick physical fitness just to live longer. Pick it to have a higher quality of life while you're here. It's huge. It starts showing up in your 60s, your higher quality of life, because your muscle mass starts deteriorating in your 60s. And the other thing I wanted to say is, and this is even just as beautiful, it's never too late. Never too late. You can pick up body mass in your 70s. You can lift weights for the first time in your 70s and start putting on muscle. It's never too late. It's not like if I didn't do this when I was younger, it's too late now. It's never too late. And as a matter of fact, you have some of the people that never exercised in their lives have a little bit of an advantage, although I won't call it an advantage. But all us ex-athletes and joggers are all suffering from sore knees or worse. The people that start jogging in their 60s and 70s don't have any knee pain. So there you go. You got an advantage.
That's fantastic, JV. Well, continued health and wellness and contrology, and see you next Tuesday for class.
You bet. I'll be there, and I will, looking forward to it very much. I'm getting to know my other male gents in the class, and I'm worried about them starting to pass me up because some of them are a little more flexible than me already. I'm not going to let it happen.
All right.
All right. Thanks for having me, Darian. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, JV. All Things Pilates is produced, written, edited, and hosted by me, Darian Gold. Mastered audio mix, Fabian Romero. Original music, a.k.a. Johnny. And we'd love for you to leave us a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. That way you let all of us know what you like about All Things Pilates. Also, if you're interested in helping to support this podcast, become a subscriber. It helps to cover all the back-end costs that accrue when producing a show. To learn more about how you can be part of our growing community, check out our show notes. It's never too late. Verdi composed his Ave Maria at the age of 85. Michelangelo was carving the Rondanini Pietà 6 days before he died at 89. Martha Graham performed until she was 75 and choreographed her 180th work at the age of 95. It's never too late to follow your dreams.